Ooh, there we go. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Plays and Fades. What are we calling this? After the weigh-in show? I don't know. It's a Friday night. We're living the dream here, breaking down another slate of UFC action, and I'm hyped. Not the greatest card in the world, but who cares? There's money to be made, and I'm so happy to have you guys all in the chat, joined by my main man today, Liam. Another episode, another great opportunity to make some money. How you doing today, my friend?
Gordo, I'm doing quite well, man. It's a pleasure to be on the show once again. We've been having really good success with this schedule. This Tuesday on my channel to break down the Contender Series, and then Friday we come back here, we wrap it up on your channel, and we divulge where's our action headed this weekend. And I got action all over the place. I got a couple bets I still have to track for this event that I just placed in Jersey. So, man, I'm ready to get after it. I feel like, for a not very, name value heavy card, we have a pretty decent betting offering. And frankly, that's part of what keeps me coming back each and every week. So that's, what I'm looking forward to this event, not going to be the most star-studded, but it is a chance to make dollars. It's an event that's probably going to have lower betting volume. So, maybe a fewer people to compete against in the market this weekend.
Hey, sometimes these low-level cards, they pay off. I mean, we've had some very entertaining fight nights recently. Even at that, though, there's only 2 more cards until we get the back-to-back pay-per-view weekends, and I'm hyped for that one. We're going to have a lot of fun betting that one. But no, I mean, we got a beautiful 10-fight card on the weekend, and I'm hyped. Big shout-out to all you guys in the chat right now. Gramps, what's going on? Welcome back. Dalton saying hi to Gramps. Shannon the Cannon Briggs. And you know what, guys? If you guys are tuning in, just stopping by for a few seconds, smash that like button. Let's have some fun here. Let's break it down. Let's get it started. I mean, 10 fights to go through. It's a Friday night. Let's do it. First fight up on the card, Ariane Candelosi versus Estella Nunes. And you know what? Let's have some fun with this. Let's see if I can share my screen real quick, because I have to show you the size of Candelosi's arms. That is something that's just wild to me. And oh well, you know what? Let's see how we're doing. Let's test my computer skills right now. Oh, look at that. Oh, that is trippy. Ariane Candelosi. I need to show you guys this girl's arms, because every time I see it, blows me away. This girl is absolutely shredded. What is that? So you know what? If you're banking on someone like Ariane Candelosi, could be some fun. All right, hopefully that went okay. I can't see anything. But anyways, moral of the story is Ariane Candelosi is absolutely ripped. Okay. She's facing someone Estella Nunes, who has not fought in a few years, but does have an extensive Muay Thai background. Candelosi is one of those fighters who is very physically strong. We saw her have that absolutely stunning first round to open up the first fight back with fans a few months ago. Pulled out a win there. And she's one of those fighters who, despite not having many finishes in women's MMA in general, I mean, this girl's a finisher. Great killer instinct, very physically strong, as you can see. Not the most technical, but I mean, when you got power like that, it doesn't matter. And I see this one as a battle between technicality and strength. How do you see this one right now?
I definitely see what you're talking about. And, stunning was a fair way to describe that. I could think that that's even maybe a generous way to describe it. I would call it sloppy. It was a really ugly first round, very low level fight, not a lot of technical skills. And, with Estella Nunes, we can't say definitively that she's, gonna have, just tremendous class difference in terms of skills. She's been gone for 3 years. But what I could say is, she has a very legitimate combat sports career outside of mixed martial arts. And so I do think she's probably very likely to have a technical edge. And I did see that in the tape as well on the feet. Now, with that being said, I also think she's, decently powerful. I think that she has a, not as impressive a frame, obviously. Very few women have as impressive a frame, but she's also coming back off that USADA suspension. I wouldn't be surprised if Carnelosi is the next to go, not to cast aspersions, but my goodness, they just have bigger biceps in Brazil, I suppose. What I think is interesting about this fight, though, is that Estella Nunes, they're right around the same age. She's been off for a few years. That's the only thing I don't like here is the inactivity. But I think that there's reason to believe that, she had clear evidence of what she needed to work on in that time off, which is she needs to stop people taking her down. Because, I went back and watched her fights. Even in the fight she's winning, she gets taken down, a decent bit of the time. So is it outside the realm of possibility that Candelosi just takes her down and Neanderthal smashes her? No, that's certainly not outside the realm. But I do think that, she kind of got tagged up by somebody I don't rate in her last fight in the brief exchanges on the feet. I don't know. I don't like that against somebody who's probably going to be a little more sharp, a little more technical. So I actually favor Estella Nunes ever so slightly in the spot, and I'm going to end up with 1 unit on her money line at plus 145.
Yeah, let me first of all say that when I mean that fight was stunning, I mean it was an entertaining first round. Like, it was electric. No really skill and technicality involved, but it was more just two women going at it and just smashing each other. And we saw it at the end of the round. Her opponent, Candelosi's opponent, couldn't even walk to the stool. And it was a very, very just fun round for us to watch. And I love watching every time I take Candelosi. But yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Dalton here. Nunes is the far better striker. The problem I have with Nunes is I don't see her being well-rounded, and it's hard for me to judge when I haven't seen her fight in that amount of time, right? I mean, of course she's going to be a great Muay Thai striker. She's competed for a few years, but she hasn't fought recently. How am I supposed to bet on someone who hasn't fought that recently, not much tape on her? And then you have someone in Candelosi who her style is just brute force. You're muted, my friend. I know you're trying to talk. Uh-oh.
I was saying that I may be mistaken, but I thought she was training with the likes of American Top Team for this fight. Let me check and see who she's training. I might be absolutely insane. I thought she came to the States to do some training for this camp. Oh, God. Now I'm not even seeing a personal link for her on Tapology. Jeez Louise, I'll have to do deeper digging. But either way, I kind of liked what I did see from her in one championship when it was on the feet. And she kind of got smashed, but by somebody who is like the best, one of the best female fighters outside the UFC and the Invicta scene. So, I kind of think that, she has bad looks publicly available on YouTube, but we also just don't really know how to rate that level of competition. And she did get a win over a very, stout, strong looking, but very short, stocky fighter on the regional scene. And that kind of reminded me of this matchup a little bit. So, we'll have to see how it plays out. And she did get taken down in that spot, but she was able to work her way back to her feet. Her guard retention isn't completely poor. It's just that she was getting passed and pressured by somebody better than her in the fights that she lost pretty bad.
I mean, I got to compare Ariane Candelosi to the female version of William Knight. Huge muscles, huge frame, but she's just a grinder. It's not like she's going to excel at submissions on the ground. She's not going to excel at technicality on the feet. She's going to have that overhand right, and she's going to just bully people up against Kane. If she does land a takedown, she does get on top. I think that ground and pound could end the fight. However, I think the clearest path to victory here would probably be, the clearest betting advantage would probably be betting this fight not to go the distance, because Candelosi got dropped in the first 10 seconds. We don't know where her chin's at. Nunes hasn't fought in 3 years. She could get finished on the ground very easily. Two very dynamic sides. Honestly, probably one you should stay away from. In terms of DraftKings, however, though, it's a perfect fight to target. A lot of people stay away from these women's fights because they technically do not end that well. But this fight will probably end, and that's what I'm saying here. I do have some Candelosi there, and I also have 0.6 units for Candelosi to finish the fight at plus 275. Mostly because I think that if she does get on top and does land some ground and pound, could be over pretty quickly. She's strong, we know that, but it's not like I'll be putting my whole bankroll on Candelosi to win a decision here. I think that her biggest path to victory would probably be grinding her up against the fence and just wearing on her and imposing that physicality edge she does have.
Well, dude, I just looked on best fight odds, and plus 244 is the best available line for Candelosi inside the distance. So well sniped there. That line seems to have been gone. I'm looking at the fight doesn't go to decision, plus 145, best available. And that is that's on Bet Online. So that's the sharpest book in the space, has the best number. Always something I take a look at myself. where Bet Online is hanging their number. And that's something that's interesting to me. I'll also just point out really briefly, and we can move on from this dumpster fire, but Candelosi, her shortest price on the market is also on Bet Online at -151, and +131 there is the return on Nunes. So I think they being the odds makers might be shading this a little bit towards a Nunes decision, but that's me trying to read the tea leaves. So take that for what it's worth. Pinch of salt, but that's how I'm looking at this a little bit.
I'm only going to have that 0.6 unit play. I'm going to probably stay away from it just because there's so many variables with that, with Nunes being off, and there's so many things. So I'm going to mostly just play it on DraftKings, enjoy the fight. Hopefully it's electric. Let's move on. We're moving on to the next fight. We have Brandon Davis, 14-8, making his return versus Dana Batgarel at 9-2. And if any of you guys saw my DFS video, had a good time. Batgirl, same thing. Batgirl actually is the fighter to have won me the most money on a prop. I never go big on props. I'm a big money line guy, but I was huge on him to finish inside the distance against Kevin Natividad. Yep. And he did. Very, very clean technical striker, a lot of power, and I'm liking that here. Also, some pretty good takedown defense, right? Then you look at Brandon Davis, and the guy's had a tough go in the UFC. I mean, he was cut from the UFC, or I think he was cut from the UFC, fighting Giga Chikadze, Zabit, just absolute killers in the division, tears it up on the regional scene, Island Fights, and now he's back. And I think it's a tough one for him to come back to because he is very durable, but he opens himself up when he blitzes forward to the exact fight that Batgirl wants in terms of that crisp counter punches when he enters the pocket. I think that it's going to be tough for Davis to get Batgirl down. I think he is pretty strong there. And if you can't tell, I think Dana Batgirl is going to win this fight. The problem with that is I'm going to be very high on him on DraftKings, and I do not want to have any moneyline exposure on it if I'm going to have that much exposure on DraftKings. So it's looking for me looking like it's going to be a pass for me. However, with Davis's durability, I'd probably edge towards a Batgirl decision. The problem with that is I mentioned this whole time how he does enter the pocket and how powerful Batgirl is. Who knows? Maybe it gets clipped. Maybe he finishes. I don't know where to go on this one. What are your thoughts on
it? For me, this was a bet on Brandon Davis for me. And the reason being was, I saw +160. I figured that the number wasn't going to last. So I think it was 0.6 units. Let me check my Bet MMA. I don't want to speak out of turn either. But, I believe I have 0.6 units on Brandon Davis on the money line. And I also played 0.25 units on Brandon Davis to win this fight by decision at +333. I think he's a very durable fighter. For anything better or worse about his fighting skills, he only got finished, I believe, by that Suluev stretch from Zabit Magomed Sharapov, and very weird fight, very low percentage outcome in my opinion, kind of just like a weird thing that happened on the night. If they fought 100 times, I don't know how many of those times Zabit Suluev stretches him, but maybe Zabit wins a lot of them, but obviously, I just think that he's fought, a tremendously higher level of competition. Kevin Natividad, with all due respect, I feel like got wronged in his first UFC fight. Held the glove. I think it was that Miles Johns. Or Tony Gravely, somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody
Miles Johns.
Yeah, Miles Johns held his glove and then uppercutted him to the absolute oblivion. And I thought that was gross, and like people just still play that highlight all the time. I'm like, yeah, he clearly cheated right there. But I think Kevin Natividad hasn't been the same since then. Literally he got bounced like a spring. It was one of the more horrifying knockouts. So just couldn't defend it at all. Had no hand to block. Like brutal clean shot on the chin. So I don't really rate that knockout too much. I feel like that was a gimme. It was an obvious spot for him. And we haven't really seen him tested too much. When somebody did try to wrestle him, being Haley Alatang, he didn't have all that much success, but mixed with his striking, his varied striking, it was enough to get the nod. He also got, I think, 2 minutes and 30 seconds of control time in that fight, which is a lot to be giving up. Frankly, to Haley Alatang, who doesn't secure all that much control time in his fights. he's the guy who tends to get a takedown with 10 seconds left at the end of the round and that kind of thing. But you don't see him hold minutes that often on top. So, now we've seen two guys that haven't really had much opportunity to test Baccarel in that phase. And, he's not the youngest. He's not the spring chicken of the division. He's like 32 years old or something. And I think he's training at Jackson Wink, which is not a gym that I rate in the highest regard. So it's interesting enough to me, but I don't know. I kind of want to see it before I'm going to back it. And I think that Davis, if he mixes in wrestling and striking here, can definitely keep this fight competitive. I think his durability is strong. And so I also took a larger play on this fight, which is that the fight goes to decision. I took 1.4 units at minus 138. I'm looking right now at this fight. Plus 146 is the best market price on Brandon Davis, by the way. And the fight to go to decision, minus 146 is the best available. Minus 150 is the most common price. So looks like we got a little bit of CLV right now, and we'll wait and see how it shakes. But I feel like this fight, more often than not, goes to decision. I feel like Brandon Davis is a pretty durable guy, and I feel like if he's able to survive the early exchanges as the fight goes on, he's going to throw more kicks to the legs and the body. I'm hoping. I'm hoping he's going to be level changing constantly, forcing him into the clinch, trying to make him work. He's got big muscles. Let's see if we can fill those up with lactic acid. I don't know that Brandon Davis is like a great anything, but he is a good ass fighter, and he's kept it very competitive with really good guys. That Giga Chikadze fight, who Giga is now like a top contender in the division, was razor thin. And they had to change the announcement and come back after I think they called it a draw live. So it's like that's how close this fight was between him and a guy who could strike but who can't grapple all that well and who trains with good grapplers and does all the right things and has shown improvements and whatever. But when push came to shove and somebody was committed to trying to put even a little bit of grappling on him and a little bit of pace down the stretch, Brandon Davis, I just feel like is a pretty reliable, consistent guy, and I think he's going to fight for my money. Plus 160. Get her done.
Hey, I like the shout there. I think that Brandon Davis is definitely hungry. He's coming back, and I think he does have the tools to get it done. The problem is it's the clash of styles, really. If you have someone who's going to be blitzing forwards, I just don't want him to rely too much on his durability is what I'm trying to say, because we know that Batgirl is going to be technical. He's going to be looking for that counter the same way he did to Natividad. So it's going to be a close one. No money line action for me, staying away completely, but we'll have some shares of Dana Batgirl on DraftKings. All right, let's move it right along. Next fight up, short notice replacement, breaking records. Fought last weekend, absolutely destroyed. Lupita Godinez, 6-1 versus Luana Carolina, 7-2. First of all, Lupita Godinez riding that Canadian flag, last decision out. Nice. Versus someone, Luana Carolina, who whenever I see her and whenever I do tape, I just have to skip that Lipsky fight where she got that knee bar. Oh my God, that thing was nasty. Oh my. So I don't know. I mean, Godinez looked great her last time out. I do think that she's kind of getting overvalued in my opinion in terms of that, because now she's coming up a weight class. However, I do think she gets it done pretty convincingly. I do think she looked great. And I do think that she'll probably win this fight. However, I do think that it's a bit wide in the money line right now, especially where it opened, just because of that recency bias. Loopy, Canadian girl, and I will back her all the way. But Carolina's pretty tough. I mean, if we see another knee bar, I won't be upset. But man, that thing was disgusting. What are your thoughts on this one?
I agree with you. That was a gross knee bar. I have actually bet on Luana Carolina in the past. And had some success. I'm trying to pull up on BetMMA my past bets so I can reference it in specific. It wasn't a huge bet. I think I went less than 1 unit on her. But Luana Carolina, half a unit against Poliana Botelho at plus 235, man. And I feel like that was a matchup where a lot of people expected Poliana Botelho to do a lot of what they're expecting Loopy to do this weekend. But that being said, I think Loopy's a little more technical. It concerned me, the weigh-ins, man. The weigh-ins concerned me big time Because I could say I've been there and it's tough when you're trying to muscle around somebody who's big and heavy. And especially if she's cutting weight in Luana Carolina's case, I don't know how much weight she's cutting. She doesn't look like she cuts a tremendous amount of weight. But even if it's 10 pounds, she's going to be 135. We know Loopy's going to be 122, 123. She didn't cut weight for that. So, man, that does seem to me just a tad concerning. But with all that being said, man, it's just I don't like the frame and the physicality of Luana Carolina in some of these matchups. I feel like she can get tripped. She can get off balanced. That knee bar was like really like silly mistakes in grappling that led to that. My goodness. And it was just hard to watch. And I think if she makes those kind of mistakes, Loopy can make her pay. But I also am not like rushing to the window to back Loopy to finish this fight. I do think that Loopy is going to win this fight. I think that even though she's going to be smaller, she is very physically strong for her size. And I think she's demonstrated that even in fights where she looks, physically shorter, a little more stout, she bodies people around. I said about the Penne fight, I've never seen somebody get power bombed in the UFC octagon, just sent upwards and outwards. It was craziness. So I do think she'll be able to hold her own physically. But I also just think that, you can create some sticky situations in grappling and in striking with a length and a reach advantage and some height. But you could also get yourself in danger. You could lock up one of those big, long limbs, isolate it from the body. So I think it could play both ways. I do favor Loopy outright in this spot pretty big. I have definitely considered putting her in a parlay at some of the lower odds out there. So if you look at best fight odds, there's kind of a range of prices on Loopy. But yeah, it's starting to creep back up a little bit. Minus 210, and then plus 190 is the best comeback on Luana Carolina. So plus 200 was there for a while, and it seems like bettors have eaten that up. And again, why? Because she's cashed in that plus 200 range before. And Loopy's coming in on a week's notice. There's not a lot of data to go on in instances like that. How many times have we seen that before? Not a lot. But I do think, she's got the right skill set. She's got the right style. She's got the right dynamics. I just don't know exactly what to make of the size difference and how much it's going to play a factor. That's why I haven't taken any direct money line exposure yet. But like I said, I'm definitely considering a parlay with her, decrease the betting, size, but increase the volume. That might be how I target it, but it's a tricky one, man. I didn't like to see her weigh in at 122 pounds.
Well, I'll tell you this right now. They were the same size, weight class. I'd be over Godinez up to like minus 400. That's the only thing that's scared me in this spot. Yeah, she's breaking records. First time anyone's coming in under a week. The record before this was Kazmat Chimaev coming in on 10 days notice. So that's pretty impressive right there. And she's not getting any attention at all for it, which I find kind of weird. I think that she's going to do great this week. And I think she's going to, if she does win, it's going to really help her push her up the rankings. And I think she has a lot of potential in this division. Do I think she's going to knee bar her the same way that Lipsky did? No. And do not Google that. That made me laugh. Do not Google that. Watching that live was ooh. But no, I mean, it's one of those spots where she has the potential to do it all. She has the tools to win. Is that physicality going to play a factor? It's kind of hard for me to back Godinez and put my money on it when I'm talking earlier about Candelosi's physicality advantages, and that's the main way she's going to win the fight. So it's really tough for me to look at it like that. I do think Godinez is going to win. I think she's a more technical fighter. I think she has so many paths to victory here. She might find my way into one of my Hail Mary sprinkles that I do every single weekend, but no action of me yet. If she does drop down, if money does keep coming in on Carolina, I will place a bet on her, no problem. I do love me some Loopy. So, no, I think that she's going to do great this weekend. Douglas is right. Full of energy, absolute stud. Really liking her. So, yeah, I mean, trains out of Abbotsford, British Columbia. Got to respect some Canadian in there. And yeah, let's move right along. Next fight on the card. Ooh, we're flying through these. The fourth one, Danny Roberts versus Ramazan Ameev. Danny Roberts is 17-5 versus Ramazan Ameev 20-4. Ameev is your classic Dagestan decision fighter versus Roberts, who is someone who's kill or to be killed, it seemed. He's given out our fair share of highlights recently, either for or against him. And this is a really interesting matchup, in my opinion. I do have some action on this one, though. So I'm going to let you talk about it first, and we'll see what I got. How are your thoughts on it?
I'm going to have some action on this one myself, buddy. I ended up almost reluctantly backing Danny Roberts in this spot. And I've got 1.1 units down at plus 280. I felt like the line was just getting a little bit ridiculous, frankly. And when I look at Ramazan Ameev, I don't see a tremendous finishing upside to his game. A lot of it's control-based. A lot of it is pace-based. And, I'm starting to see that durability just tick, diminish a little bit. And I feel like Danny Roberts is the kind of guy who can make you pay for that. He's not some bum fighter. I think that Danny Roberts gets a bad rap, but he hasn't always fought the easiest competition in the UFC. If you look at, his last win, Zelim and Madaev, I don't rate Zelim that high, but I do think that, people were a little bit lower on Danny coming into that fight, plus 185 underdog, and he bops him. And then, he loses to Michel Pereira, which is like, that's a guy who's like moving his way on up in the division. And Claudio Silva, that was a very competitive fight where he was winning the vast majority. And Claudio Silva is dangerous with his jiu-jitsu always. And so he's able to get him at the very, bitter end. But he had to fight for that. He had to really scrap, claw, and earn that win. And, I don't know. Ramazan Ameev, Danny Roberts, they're like the same age. I don't know why everybody's just rushing to the window to parlay up this Ameev guy. I see why, he has more control potential in the fight. I see why he's the favorite here for sure. But, maybe a 2-1. I don't see him finishing this fight all that often. Maybe if you want to say 2.5, okay. But you're going to give me plus 280 on Danny Roberts, and you're going to give me plus 750 Danny Roberts to win by knockout? Get out of here! Got to take that. And, I went small on the Danny Roberts KO line, but I touched Danny Roberts KO, and I'm on Danny Roberts' money line here, 1.1 units, because I think plus 280 is just a really wide line.
That is not what I wanted to hear, because I'm one of those fools rushing to the window to bet Ramazan Ameev this weekend. And, well, call me a fool. That's okay. Ramazan Ameev is actually minus 330 in my book right now. Parlay piece, sure. But I think where the real value does lie is going to be Ramazan Ameev to win by decision. I think that's where he wins most of the fights. I do think that he's able to do that. And if I want to hedge my bets, because guess what? I have a combined 3 units on Ramazan Ameev this weekend. I think the way to do it is Danny Roberts by KO. I think it'd be a good fight, but I think honestly this is a spot where Ameev is just going to be able to execute his game plan better. And it's going to be one where hopefully I don't sweat it at all. I locked in 2 units. Ramazan Ameev as a parlay piece, with someone we'll talk about later, and a unit on him to win by decision at plus 120. It is now plus 110, I believe, there. So, yay, CLV, woohoo! But this is one of those spots where I think that it's just going to end up to being like a lot of other Ramazan Ameev fights. Grinds him out, keeps it going. I'll let you say your piece here.
I want to address the people in the chat. I don't mean to break anybody's heart, right? More often than not, you guys are going to win this bet, right? Like greater than 50% of the time, you guys are going to win this bet for sure. I would agree with you guys there. What I think is the danger is just that the price, I feel like the bookie is like more than aware. And in fact, it's the market really that I think overrates Ameev historically. It's not like if it was just this fight, maybe I wouldn't be getting involved. But like, I feel like every time he's out there, he's minus 350, just like reset the line, or he's minus 250 and let's move him back out there, says the market. And I just think that, while I used to get it, I'm now seeing these cracks in the armor, these little chinks, these little bit by bit, the fights are getting more competitive. David Zawada, who got dominated by Alex Morono, I thought he was a good fighter. I misunderstood because I watched this fight. It's like, so now I have to go back and reevaluate. Why did I get my David Zawada bet wrong? Maybe it's because Ramazan and Ameev isn't as good as I thought.
I think Doug has got it spot on here. I think it's either Ameev by KO or Roberts KO. Sorry, Ameev by decision or Roberts KO. And guess what? I got the majority on my side. Let's go, boys. I think we get it done this weekend. This is a spot where it's just a very binary fight. I think he has the tools to get it done. Sure, maybe inflated, but we're here to bet. We're here to make money, and we're going to bet on people who we think are going to win the fight. I think that the possibility of Roberts knocking him out is there. It's just not something that is, let's say, going to happen every single fight. I'm on Ameev. I think he wins by decision. I think he grinds
What's
it out.
Ameev by decision?
I got him at plus 120. He's now plus 110. So it's a spot where I do think he gets it done. I think that's the most likely outcome of the entire fight. But in case Danny Roberts give up, because there's a track record of him being knocked out and finished, even though I don't know if Ameev's the guy to do that. He's a killer to be killed fighter. So I don't want to have all my units on it by decision. I'm playing it safe. I'm going to pussy out a bit here. And I just have 3 units combined, 2 units as a parlay piece, 1 unit hit him by decision. Lock it up.
I think that if you're on the Ameev side, that's a really smart way to approach it. Limit your output by putting him in the parlays so you don't have to put as much exposure on him. And then if you're going to play him by his most likely path to victory. If you guys have access to FanDuel Sportsbook, maybe you look at one of those double chances if you think, oh, but what if he gets the knock? Oh, what if he gets the sub? And I think that, the sub is probably live here, but we've also seen Danny Roberts get sparked, so it's just something to consider. But I feel like if you're going to be on the Ameev side, you guys targeted it the right way, but all I'm saying is like, I think that the plus EV bet is the plus 120 Ameev to win by decision, not Ameev money line minus 330. If you parlay it, I get it. But I'm saying if you straight bet 3.3 units to win one on Ameev long term, I think you're going to lose money. That's all.
Question I have here, is this a triple chance? Decision, KO, and sub? What other methods are there? You're eliminating the DQ and draw? That, I mean, if that's a real line, you take that because that's pretty much like his money line. But this is a spot where I'm backing someone who I think is going to win. I'm paying a price for it. I'm paying the price because he is one of those stand fighters, and he is Russian Ameev. So hopefully I don't pay the price for it. Really liking him here. Parlay piece if you want to. I completely see why you're there. I will probably hedge out depending on how my night goes on that Roberts KO. But I say we don't waste any more time on it. I'm very happy we're disagreeing on this one. It's nice for us to go head to head and give a nice little clash. But I do hope you're wrong this weekend in the nicest way possible. All right, moving right along to this is an interesting one. Andrew Sanchez, 12-6 versus Bruno Silva, 20-6. That being said, Andrew Sanchez is the more experienced fighter in the spot, faced battle lab competition. And I think he's very, very live as an underdog this weekend. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong based on where the price has moved. But again, I'm just going to come clean. I feel like I'm on the other side of like everybody this week. And so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but even a lot of the guests on my show and I didn't see eye to eye on all these fights. And, one of the fights that we disagreed on was here, and everybody was saying that there's value on Andrew Sanchez. And I agree. I locked up Bruno Silva at minus 130. Pretty early on. Now you see that Bruno Silva, the best available price, minus 145 on 5 dimes. That's creeped down a bit, but basically everywhere else on the market, minus 150 and above. And, that's sort of where I see this fight lining up. Do I see why Andrew Sanchez could have a path here? I definitely do. Andrew Sanchez, Division I wrestling credentials, I always give credit and respect. I know the grind that takes in life and work ethic to get there, much less to stay there and to compete at a high level. So Andrew Sanchez is a workhorse. I've actually acknowledged as well that his move to AKA is probably a very wise one long term. Can it make a tremendous impact in one stint for one fight? I'm a little less sold on, but I guess that's yet to be seen. What I would say is that, for me, Andrew Sanchez is a little bit of a cardio liability and a little bit of a chin liability, and they kind of play off each other, right? So, like, when he's fresh, he's pretty good at hiding the chin. But as he starts to get a little tired, he's not so good at it. And he's not as good at disguising what hurts him and what doesn't. And his poker face is gone. And my worry for him is that, I think everybody with a ticket in their pocket is going to feel good if this fight's in round 2. If this fight's, hitting round 3, they're like, we made it out of the tough parts. But I just think that right till the final bell, Andrew Sanchez is live to collapse in on himself. He's done it a few times in fights where he was pretty competitive and seemed like he was competing soundly. And I mentioned as well on my stream, Makhmud Muradov, guy that the market's super high on, guy that I'm not as high on. I bet Gerald Meerschaert against him. I bet Gerald Meerschaert inside the distance. So I put my money where my mouth was, and it paid off in a big way. But on top of that, if you go back, like I thought that was a concerning fight on the Makhmud Muradov side. And Makhmud Muradov hasn't really shown a tremendous amount of power, all things considered, in the UFC. That's why I actually wasn't that afraid for GM3. He showed technical proficiency. He showed, class. He showed an ability to put on a lot of volume over the course of 3 rounds that eventually did something to hurt somebody. But he wasn't just one-shotting these guys in the UFC. And eventually, Andrew Sanchez, in a fight that was competitive, started to break down and fell apart and got finished. I think that's very live to happen again here. In a fight with Bruno Silva, we saw in a fight where he's facing some adversity when things aren't going his way. Granted, it was only a 1-round fight, but Wellington Turman was basically having his way, got it to all the positions he wanted, but the guy who was still confident was Bruno Silva. And Wellington Turman was never confident in that fight. And I feel like Andrew Sanchez is a confidence fighter. When he's feeling good, when he's feeling like everything's going gravy, he fights one way, and then things can just flip and go off the track really quick. And I think that Bruno Silva is the kind of guy who could take advantage of that. I think he's got power in his hands the whole way. And I also think that, it only takes one mistake, in my opinion, in one of these scrambles. Andrew Sanchez gets caught underneath. We've seen it before. The ground and pound from this guy is hellacious, and in a career where he's put together all these knockouts, you start going through the Rolodex. A lot of them are on the ground. A lot of them are bashing people and putting them out cold, like Turman. And this guy can thump really hard. And, we've seen him go in the 4th and the 5th round as well, reverse position and knock people out. I think that's a really concerning guy for Andrew Sanchez to fight. But that being said, if this fight sees the scorecards, I think you have to favor Andrew Sanchez, all things considered. I think he's probably going to win more minutes in this fight. But I just feel like on the money line perspective, I feel like it might just be this ever so slight trap bet because if Andrew's, and what I will say is this. Andrew Sanchez can also finish this fight inside the distance if he's getting significant top control. We've never seen it from him before. That's why I'm like hesitant to back it happening here, where Andrew Sanchez takes somebody's back and finishes them, just with routine submissions. But he does have, credentials in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I feel like he is capable to do that. But Bruno Silva, people talk about him like he's this bum grappler. Wellington Turman, everybody regards him for the most part as a grappler. And he was competitive in those exchanges and was able to eventually win it. So, shucking somebody off the top, granted, Wellington lost balance. It was a mistake on his part. It was also Bruno was doing the right things, spacing out, making himself hard to hold on to. And, if somebody falls over the top, that's just grappling. Like that happens in grappling. And he made him pay. Plain and simple. And from the guard, too. Viciously from the guard. Like that guy's he's a problem.
Yeah, I have no action yet. And this is a spot where it's more of those ones where I don't think that Sanchez should be the underdog. And the line is still creeping. So I have not pulled the trigger yet. But if you give me plus 140, plus 145, plus 150, I'm going to take it just because I think Sanchez faced a better competition. He's got a new camp who will do wonders for him, and he has the tools to win this fight. I haven't really seen Bruno Silva tested much. What we do know from him is he has insane power, and he's able to finish fights, which is the problem here because Sanchez has been finished. Am I worried of a knockout if I'm betting Sanchez? Of course, 100% of the time. But am I also worried about losing a decision? Not as much. So it's one of these things where I think there's more path to victory for Sanchez. I think that he is a great DraftKings play if you want those takedowns, control time. Hopefully he does execute that game plan. And I think it's one of these ones where give me that line. Like, I'm waiting for it. I'm not playing it yet. I do see the path to victory for Silva. I do think that if he does win, it is knockout. So what Douglas is saying in the chat right now is a possibility. I do think if it does go to the cards, I would just take Sanchez to win by decision if it is that boring fight, but we'll see how it goes.
I just think that, if I'm to get involved in the fight at this point, I'd almost start to agree with you, man. I like to look for hinge points. I tell you this all the time, and, I feel like the hinge point in this is 145. If you can get Andrew Sanchez at plus 145, I think that that's a good bet for sure. But I think that under that price, for me, I feel like you're probably just playing it at evens, in terms of how I cap the fight at least. But I wish everybody, no matter how you end up targeting this one, best of luck. But I just don't want the sweat of having an Andrew Sanchez ticket and going, we did it. Oh my God. I can't do it to myself. I've done it before and not going to do it again. And it's happened over the course of his career, just to be clear, guys. Like, this isn't a recent thing. Like, this has happened to him before. So that's why I don't think it's like just against Macklin Burn. No, you can go back. There's other examples. So Anthony Smith comes to mind. So just I think that it's a live possibility against a guy who's a dangerous finisher at all times. But I actually think it's a fun matchup. I see some people talking about it as a boring fight, and maybe it could be, but I think that this is live to be a fun one. If Bruno Silva can work out of any bad positions, I think it'll be fun.
I completely agree with that statement. I do think it'll be a good scrap. Chin issues always scare me, so that's all I'm going to say. I'm gonna back off of this one. In terms of DraftKings, though, I will be pretty high on Sanchez. Struggling to find dogs I'm completely confident in terms of ownership. So I think that Sanchez is going to be that guy who I will go to multiple times. Speaking of DFS, what's going on, Mr. DFS Whisperer? Great mind of the sport. Go check out his channel as well. And yeah, it's one of those spots where I'm looking forward to it. Even though I have made a bet on Jason Witt in the past, I am always scared to bet on guys who have chin issues. So I'm going to stay away from it on that side. But again, you give me that plus 150 price tag, I will place a bet on it that way right there. It's just one of these. It's just a levels fight, in my opinion, in terms of competition and ability. But that path to victory is definitely there. So also a GPP option if you want a favorite. Silver, if he does win, there probably will be a finish. There you go. Target that. All right, moving right along to what is now on the main card after that dropout. Sucks because I did have some action on that Marquez fight, and I did want to see him call out another celebrity again because, that's always fun. We got Ludovic Klein, 17-3 against Nate Landwehr, 14-4, and it's a shame my friend Phoenix MMA is not in the show because he would complain to you about Mr. Klein not cashing his bet last time out. He went out there and he got outworked by Mike Trizano, so fair play. But Klein is one of those guys who is so technically sound, and if you allow him to have that space, if you allow him to get those kicks, he can put anybody's lights out, and he's faking someone in Nate Landwehr who relies on his durability. Ooh, that scares me. You got to think it's Klein all day. Head kick KO, or am I crazy?
I actually feel very much the same about this fight. And what's funny, man, is that I remember distinctly, and I love Phoenix, trying to tell him, bro, I was like, Mike Trizano is one of my local guys here. And, dude, he's a stud. Like, Mike Trizano just doesn't get enough respect. His game has always been pretty sound. And, I did think Tajik Bey came on my show and said he thought he won 30-27, Mike Trizano. I don't agree with that. I actually thought that there is a pretty decent argument, that either guy won the fight. I could definitely see it for Ludovic Klein too, but I thought that the effective striking was done by Mike Trizano in that fight. That being said, Mike Trizano and all the guys have a foundational kickboxing game. This is, I feel like, a real setup fight for Ludovic Klein. Like Ludovic Klein in the Shane Young fight, that was not as much of a setup, but Shane is a little bit stationary and, a little bit reactive. And he was known for his durability too, and got absolutely smoked in that fight. And I feel like Ludovic Klein is being set up to do the same here. He's the much younger guy. He's, not outsized in a big way by Nate Landwehr. I think Nate might have either height or reach. I forget now off the top of my head, but it's very close in terms of their size. And I just think Ludovic is sharper. I think he's faster. I think he's way more dynamic. Do I think that he will have as easy a bailout to wrestling entries in this fight? I don't. But I do think that he's probably the better fighter. I'm on him for 1.1 units inside the distance in this spot. And I definitely considered the Klein KO one, but it's just been it's like plus 210. They're really smart to it. So I feel like I'm probably just going to stick with the one bet I have here. But I also probably would not be touching Klein at the minus 400 tag. But if you have access to the minus 335 on 5 dimes, I don't hate that. I think it might be playable to that price, but it just starts to get a little dangerous there. I wouldn't lay it personally on the money line, but I did think that inside the distance at minus 110 was calling my name because I feel like that's a 60% outcome, at least. But let's see.
Yeah.
Sneaky spot here might be Ludovic Klein submission. And I know that it's not like how he's been winning his fights recently, but I feel like a club and then Nate Landwehr shoots a really awkward, dumb takedown because he's hurt is not out of the question. And I think Ludovic Klein to win by sub in round 1 is plus 2,500. And I can't say that won't be like a Hail Mary $2 bet for me. $2 to $5 win me a nice chunk of change here with something that people aren't expecting for narrative. And I think that he has an equal share of KOs and subs over the course of his career. So he's been on a KO run, but Nate Landwehr, for all his other faults, he doesn't get off buttoned all that often. He's pretty damn insanely tough. Like he'll get badly mangled, but still be like awake to talk about it. And, I feel like if that's happening here, that's when maybe we see Ludovic turn to, a takedown and that sub threat. I don't think he's bad on the ground, but I also think that the much more likely outcome is that he shins him and it's over, or that he hits a flying knee like he's been working on Instagram. So I think that Ludovic Klein's going to take him out. I think that the money line side is Nate, though, in fairness. At plus whatever it is, plus 330 on Bet Online, I would probably be on that money line instead of Ludovic at this point, just because, or actually, I probably wouldn't even touch his money line necessarily. Although the thing that's tricky is you'd think Nate by decision, but Ludovic's been finished twice in 3 losses, and twice in the first round. So I think that if you want to take just an absolute dumpster fire shot in this fight and you hate money, then maybe Nate Landwehr round 1, just for the fuck it bucket,
Yeah, I mean, it's tough for me to lay the inside of distance price tag on against Landwehr because even though he has been finished, man is so durable. He's so tough. So I am going to take Klein, and I'm going to do what I do every single weekend. What do I do every single weekend, you may ask? Favorite UFC play, favorite NFL play, put them together, nice little 2-unit parlay. We have some fun with it because whereas I do think it is a bit harder to cap UFC, NFL typically has a higher percentage of hitting those big favorites. So I'm going to be rocking the Rams and Klein 2-unit parlay. Boom, get it done. Injury-ridden New York Giants against that Rams team. So we'll see. Klein KO Klein side of distance will be in my Hail Mary parlays. There's no doubt about it, but I'm just going to stick to the money line because I'm scared. We know that Landwehr is tough, so I don't want to just discredit that. But I do think the most likely outcome is probably a finish here, but I don't want to put that money there. it is fun to have. That's what I'm saying. So I do have those Hail Marys. I do post them every single Saturday afternoon. So yeah, I mean, I'm going all for it. I got Klein at -350. He's still there on Betway. Again, Canadians, tough for me to get all the best lines. So at least I got a good line there on Betway, right? So no, I say move it right along. Klein, draft perspective, should get the finish here. Great pay up option if you have the cash to do so. But in a card with not a lot of dogs, it's tough to say. All right, before we move on, what's up, Frank? How you doing? Thank you for the kind words. Glad to see you tuning in as always. All right, moving right along. Oof, this one is fun. I've seen a lot of different sides. This was my words aren't there. This is a very tightly contested battle all over Twitter and all that stuff. And as Dalton said earlier in the chat, friendly reminder to bet everything on Manon Fiorot. All right, let's get it going. Manon Fiorot, 7-1, facing Maria Bruno Silva, 7-1-1. And Manon Fiorot is the hype train of the women's division. I mean, she's got some striking, she's got some power, she's got some finishes, but she's facing someone in Silva who will fight for your money. Silva's tough, she's got a good ground game, and I think packs a decent punch as well. I do have a bet on Manon Fiorot because I do think she is a better striker, but I think she's getting too much love in terms of the money line. I do think it's a bit wide because Silva's a dog. Silva has path to victory, but Fiorot is the better fighter in my opinion. I do not see Silva taking her down. I just instead see a nice little, let's say, 12-minute striking affair until finally Silva is broken down. What are your thoughts on this one?
Whew, one of the few fights on the card I don't have action on, my friend, and at least not yet. I might be waiting a little bit longer and seeing how far the line goes. And now, let me also say this. This is a fight I'm probably going to revisit the tape a little bit before I make a final call here because I don't want to let my recency bias get in the way. I think it was Mayra Bueno Silva against Montana De La Rosa that went to a draw. Am I correct about that? I had her in that fight and was very, very angry that fight was a draw. I thought that she should have won the fight. Silly mistakes. So I really think that she's a very talented fighter, and you're normally used to paying, a favorite tag on her. And now she's a pretty big underdog here. She is the younger lady. She's got, comparable reach. There's a lot of things that just make me nervous. That being said, I think that some of the, stories about Manon Fiorot's ground game have been greatly exaggerated, right? We saw that in the Liam McCourt fight, the fight that she lost, that was a fight where she was very competitive. She was able to scramble through a lot of those situations. She didn't just get stuck in a lot of bad grappling positions. She was able to work through them. And she showed some core competencies there and also just a lot of strength and physicality, pretty dynamic athlete. But I think it's a pretty tricky matchup. And it's a big jump in competition as far as I'm concerned from kind of the level that she's been at. So while I do favor her here outright, and I did have a parlay wager on her, the initial booking of this matchup, seeing that the odds were re-released with Manon Fiorot as such a lower favorite indicated to me that there was sharp action on the Mayra Bueno Silva betting line. And I could be wrong about that, but that's at least how I was reading the market response because this fight was booked not very long ago and Manon Fiorot was across the board -250 and above. She was -275. She was -300. You're not seeing that now. And I think that is telling. The books don't want exposure to those +300 and +250 tickets on Mayra Bueno Silva, in my opinion. But we are seeing +220 best available on 5 dimes, Bet Online, and a couple of the other houses have +210. So you can get decent lines on Mayra Bueno Silva over +200. And earlier today, that was not the case, by the way. So there's late action pushing this line back and forth. But I'm going to wait and see how this plays out. I would say that +235 and above, I will probably be looking to get involved on Mayra Bueno Silva. We may not see that price, but that is something that I'm at least considering. Myro Buena Silva inside the distance at like plus 475 or plus 500. I didn't hate that either. I don't have any shares of that, but if she's able to get on top, she's got pretty good ground and pound. She might have the strength and physicality to match Manon Ferro and be able to keep her down in some of these spots if she is able to get takedowns. Maybe I'm wrong. Manon Ferro does have a big back. She's a wide woman. She's built different, if you will. But I also think that Mayra Buena Silva is no one's pushover, and she is the younger athlete. Like I think that this is certainly not going to be a pushover fight, and I could see this fight ending inside the distance. I could see it being Manon Ferro outpointing her at range, and avoiding a lot of the heavier shots on the inside. But I think if this fight gets to the inside, if you get some pocket exchanges, if you get some clinch work, if you get some takedowns, it starts to get sloppier and it starts to get closer in my mind. And I think that the finishing potential is roughly at parity maybe. So I don't know. I can't get to minus 300 justification on Furo, which is what I would probably want to better at the minus 250 tag. So man, I don't know. I think that this is a tough fight. But again, I'm going to revisit the tape. Official play. If I make one, I'll drop that on Twitter for you guys. And, always my official predictions come out before the event. But this is one that's kind of, I've been swayed back and forth, and hearing, I always tell people, don't just listen to me, cultivate, great information, because I've heard really smart opinions both directions on this fight. It's making me conflicted. I don't think I'll have heavy action in either direction when all is said and done, but I could definitely see myself ending up on the dog here. I got the mug. If you guys haven't picked up on it yet, based on my bets, I go dog hunting on these cards a lot of the time. I'm looking to keep my exposure a little bit smaller, not have to put as much of an outlay, but I'm trying to, find good spots for me long term. If I hit enough of these dogs on any one card or over the course of the year, I'm going to make money, and that's what I'm looking to do. Play the long game, and it doesn't have to be the dogs hit every week, but more often than not, you're going to see me playing dogs than laying juice. And I think that that's going to be a good strategy for me long term. That's been what I've been trying to focus on lately. And it only takes a couple of these dog shots coming through. Danny Roberts could pay for most of my night if he comes through. So let's see how this goes. I think that this should be a good fight.
All right. Well, I really, really love the breakdown. And before I go into my breakdown, first I want to say thank you, everybody, for being here. Make sure you guys hit that like button. What I got to say, too, is Liam is really good at catching those dogs, which is what is scaring me here. But where you say to go ask for other information, no, this is what you got to know. Firio is a killer. 86% KO rate is right. She is a very good fighter. The problem with her is she has not faced the best competition. I would actually give the competitive advantage to Silva, who has fought the Julian Robertsons, who's fought the better people in the UFC division. With that being said, though, Firio has lived up to every single task she has been given, and I am on her to win this weekend. She is the other parlay piece to Ramazan Ameev, which isn't good going up against you for two bets on a single parlay. But I do think she's the side here. I do think that she has that striking advantage. I do think that she's going to be able to keep it at range. And I do think she won't be a fish out of water on the ground either. The biggest fear for me would be extended period of times on the ground, because Silva, of course, has the edge. I do think that she has a grappling edge. When it comes to power, technicality, range, I will give it to Firio. And I have to agree with Dalton as well, because Firio is a hype train. And whereas I'm not the biggest on her, and I will probably fade her in the future, this might be the closest you can get to minus 200 odds. I just do not think Silva's the one to get it done this weekend. The problem I have here is I'm not like everybody else in terms of Firio's going to knock this girl out. I do think Silva's durable. She's a dog. She will fight for your money. I'm leaning more towards a Firio decision. And that's what's scaring me, is because big DraftKings player, as you know, I want those fighters who are going to finish that fight. And where she does an 86% KO rate, Silva's tough, and she's fought a lot of better competition too. Honestly, I might be sweating this spot here with my ticket on Figio alone. So I will have some Figio by decision in some Hail Mary parlays, and I will have some Figio on DraftKings in case she does finish. Easy way to cover it all, right? But I do think this is a spot where Figio does get it done. I think that if she wants to go out there and start Silva, I'd be more than happy to fade her next time out, because whereas I do think she's a great fighter, there's some other fighters in this division I will favor over her. But I think she gets it done pretty convincingly, and I am scared laying that big price tag. Honestly, I wouldn't play her above. I think minus 250 or is even pushing it, but I still play her at that. But I do think she gets it done. I'm really looking forward to it to really gauge where she is. I do have that bet. Originally, I was betting her with parlay with Julian Marquez. Much happier about that, but that fight is off the table. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna be on Figio. You're gonna be financially on Silva. So let's see how it goes. I hope.
As of now, my hands are clean of this fight. This is one of the few fights on the card. I don't have anything yet, but I definitely was taking a long, hard look at that plus 475 inside the distance, Mayra Bueno Silva, because she does have power. Because she is probably the best person that Manon Fiorot has ever fought, and because her submission game is much better. So I think that, submitting Jillian Robertson is a statement. People talk about Jillian Robertson as the best grappler in the division. I'm just saying. Or among the best grapplers in the division. And she submitted her in the first round. So she's got a guard. She's got probably a top game that we don't see as often. And, man, I just think, have you seen the training footage for this fight too? Not to put too much stock into it. She looks phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm afraid. I was like, all in on Manon Fiorot. Like I said, I had her parlayed up with Chris Dawkins. May his name go in peace. I mean, geez, that man has given me so much money. I have to write him a personal thank you note. But I also was happy enough to get that bet straight after all, because I feel like, I definitely could see Manon winning this fight. I definitely see her as the favorite, but it's just such a greasy one for me. This is a girl I've been backing as a favorite on the other side, in Mayra Bueno Silva. So I just don't want to race to the window to fade her now. I think she's a good fighter, and she could keep it competitive with anybody.
All right, I'll give you that one. All right, I'm excited to see how it goes. I'm going to be picking Figio to win this fight, and I will be putting my money where my mouth is there. Let's move right along. We got 3 fights left, some good ones to go, and I see you guys talking about Jim Miller in the chat already. So that's what we got here. 32-16 Jim Miller against 14-5 Eric Gonzalez making his UFC debut. And I do see UFC wants new talent. And I do see Dusty old Jim Miller. And I do see Bring on the Heat. But the thing is, Jim Miller does one thing great, and he does it all the time. And that is he dispatches of these up-and-coming fighters and the young fighters who he's just level above. He's one of these fighters who will be a gatekeeper because he is able to assert that dominance in that first round against whoever gives him the chance to. Do I think he's able to crack the top 15? No. But is he able to beat these fighters who make their UFC debut? I think he does. And whereas I do think the UFC wants new talent, this is a perfect test. If you're the UFC, you're like, all right, you can either take care of this Jim Miller guy if you can survive one round and you're in, or it truly shows you where you are. And I think that Jim Miller is going to be able to dispatch of him by submission early on. I do have a bet on that. I do have Jim Miller to win this fight early, but this is a perfect live betting opportunity. If you can get Gonzalez right after round 1, if he does survive it, take it, because Jim Miller is a GPP haven. He loves to finish those fights early. If he doesn't, usually doesn't go his way in the long run. But I do think this is a spot where he's able to assert his UFC experience and expertise, snatch up that neck. Oh, Gonzalez has a long neck. Did you see that picture at weigh-ins? It's one of those spots where I think he's going to snatch it up. I think he's going to get a sub, and he's a good GBP option for me. What about you?
Well, Gordo, as much and all as I love when we can go back and forth and have a little tit for tat, there's nothing better than when we are just in lockstep agreement. And I have Jim Miller round 1 at plus 550. I have Jim Miller by sub in round 1 at plus 700. I also added to it at plus 750. I have Jim Miller to win in round 1 or 2 at plus 280. So I have a 1 unit of exposure so far tracked on Jim Miller across those bets that I just mentioned. So instead of targeting his money line, which I do agree with Douglas, minus 225, it's not out of the playable range for me. I do think he's going to win this fight. But I also just think in terms of a straight wager, I'm not laying that on Jim Miller as a straight wager for one reason. Jim Miller is really a round one fighter for the most part at this point. Can he win a fight in the second round? I think he can. But by the third round, I feel like he's going to be really, really gassed. And I just don't want to have that minus 225 in my pocket on Jim Miller straight if he's gassing out in that fight. Now, that being said, when I was talking about parlaying up Lupi Godinez, this is kind of what I was thinking of. Two fighters that I'm a little sketched out about. I don't want to get full exposure on either fighter. But would I put down 1 unit on both these fighters to win to get plus money? That seems a little interesting to me. I do think both of them are going to win the fight. But do I want to lay them straight? Maybe not. They're at a significant price tag. Do I want to then bet to win a half unit? No, I don't want to do that either. But 1 unit to win a unit on both of them to win, that seems a little bit more compelling to me. I do think both these fighters are going to get it done. I don't love either of their money line prices. So that's at least one parlay that I'm considering. Haven't locked it up this weekend, but thinking about it. Outside of that, man, I think Jim Miller is going to run through this guy. The guy's been submitted pretty easily before on the regional scene by people that couldn't sniff Jim Miller's jock. And Jim Miller is a UFC legend. And on top of that, he's got excellent submissions. And on top of that, the UFC really likes him. So I think they gave him a layup here. We're going to have to wait and see, man. Obviously, this is going to be a scrap from the Gonzalez side of things. This is his opportunity. He wants to make a name for himself, but he's also probably going to get another opportunity. They're feeding him to the wolves. And I think this is going to be a levels fight. I think Jim Miller's going to, put him through the paces fast. Joe Selecki was getting touched up on the feet by Jim Miller and decided I have to pull guard and concede round 1 to this guy to survive the fight. So I think that this is an interesting spot. I see somebody in the chat, Douglas, saying doesn't go to decision plus 110. I like that bet. I don't dislike that bet at all. But I'm going to be front loaded on Jim Miller here. Probably going to end up with 1.5 units of exposure on him. And most of it's going to be on sub round 1 at plus 750 because I feel like that's not only the most likely outcome of this fight. I feel like that's Jim Miller's, a fair portion of his win equity. So let's get it in, Jim Miller. I think this is your time. I think he's making the big comeback. Hopefully COVID didn't do my boy wrong. And, New Jersey's strong. Jim Miller's going to come out there and put him through the paces.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one who is very open to fading Jim Miller. I bet Slucky against him. I bet Pichel against him as well. And it's one of these guys who he's beatable. He's very, very beatable. The thing is, he's beatable against guys who are able to survive, who are able to keep up with him, who have fought guys just as good as Jim Miller. And I think that where Gonzalez may have some potential, he's not there yet. He's been submitted before. He's faced much worse competition. And now you're giving me plus 200 for Jim Miller to finish or plus 750 for him to sub him round 1, like you said. That's something I really, really like. The problem with me is a bit scared. I'm going to play it safe and go inside the distance instead of just round 1 because I do think he does get it done in round 1, but I don't want to discredit a Hail Mary sub round 2. And I think this is a spot where Jim Miller is going to be able to have his opportunities and show himself that Gonzalez is not that easy to win in the UFC. He's a mainstay here for a reason. Doesn't look like he's retiring anything soon if you looked at his interviews. I think it's a spot where he goes out there, he shows people what he's about, shows them that he's still the old Jim Miller, and he locks him up a submission early on.
Dude, people are talking about this fight like Jim Miller didn't keep it competitive with Dustin Poirier. People are talking about this fight like Jim Miller hasn't absolutely paced guys who are credible UFC fighters in his grappling. And again, might I remind people that Joe Selecki, one of the better grapplers in the division, even still got pretty thoroughly controlled for the majority of the first round, forced to stay underneath in a conservative closed guard to avoid getting past. So Jim Miller's jiu-jitsu has the respect of his best contemporaries. And I don't rate Gonzalez as that. So for that reason alone, I feel like Jim Miller, that's why he's a favorite here. Historically, Jim Miller performs as a favorite as well. I like to look at how fighters perform in their odds range, and Jim Miller as a favorite has been pretty consistent cash money. So, we're not going to get all that many opportunities. He's been an underdog in a lot of his recent fights. I think there's a reason why the market is higher on him here. I think that when Jim Miller takes a step down in competition, he normally reminds people that y'all must have forgot.
I completely with you there. I'm not going to waste any more time on that. I do think that if you're going to play some DraftKings this weekend and you're trying to go for the big pot, Jim Miller is either he's round one or bust. He's 115 point ceiling, 130 point ceiling, 10-point floor, right? So it's really tough for me to not want to play him on DraftKings. I think he's great. But yeah, how much time is his last fight? Jim Miller last fought on April 10th against Joe Solecki, where he won round one. So he's had his time off, 6 months. That's exactly what you want. And yeah, I mean, it's not like he got tuned up in that fight, so it's not like I'm worried about durability. He lost a competitive decision.
He just got control grappled in that fight. He didn't get hurt at all. Like it was a humping, from Joe Solecki, and God bless him for it. Like it was a smart game plan, but it was not a very compelling fight to the eye, I will tell you. But as a -2 of Joe Solecki backer, those last 2 rounds being non-competitive and totally boring was exactly what the doctor ordered.
Exactly. And it's something that I do not think Gonzalez will do this weekend. All right, moving right along to co-main event. We have the everlasting Andre Arlovski, 31-20. I don't know. I saw him acting the other day. I don't know if you guys have ever watched the show Limitless, but I was watching with my girlfriend. He's an actor. He was in there as a bad guy. And I'm like, damn, badass Andre Arlovski acting it out. There we go. And he's facing someone in Carlos Felipe. 11-1 split decision win his last time out against the best fighter in the heavyweight division, Jake Collier. This is a spot where I'm a bit torn. Arlovski's old, but is he old enough to be a plus? I don't know if he's plus money anymore, but be a plus money underdog against your boy Felipe? I don't think so. I think that this is a spot where it's not like Felipe is this powerful guy. He's a decision winner, and he likes to showboat and look like he's winning fights. I don't know. I'm so torn on this.
He's more appropriately a split decision winner, my friend.
Exactly, and he doesn't blow me away. He's not like some stud that I'm racing to bet. I'm actually racing to fade him, and actually, like, sure, he'll take the middle of the cage, but he's winning split decisions against guys who wouldn't stand a chance against Arlovski, in my opinion. So I took my 1 unit on him at plus money when I got plus 100, and I kind of want to put more. I don't know, because I don't like betting fighters that old in Arlovski, but he's fought the way better competition. He is the way better fighter in every single way. The only path to victory I think you can give Felipe is probably that split decision win if Arlovski wants to be such low volume again. But like, I don't think Felipe's going to do anything different than Tanner Boser did. I think Tanner Boser's a better striker. I don't know. It's really tough.
I think he's going to do things a lot different than Tanner Boser did, because Tanner Boser throws leg kicks and he doesn't. He literally has no other tools besides boxing on the feet, by and large, and I don't mean to speak disparagingly, but like in his UFC fights, he's never displayed anything other than pretty simple but intuitive boxing. He's not bad at it. I've actually been a little bit higher on him than the market for sure. I thought he was going to definitely win the Collier fight, by example. But I've honestly been underwhelmed by his ability to get off the cage. Which I think Arlovski is probably live to exploit. He's still a big enough guy, can lean on you. And I also think that Arlovski is just a smarter fighter, a lot more experience, a ton of craft, been all over the game. And I think that, I like betting on younger fighters. I like betting on younger fighters to beat old fighters, especially. I like betting on massive age gaps. But the problem is it's a heavyweight fight. And heavyweight fights, I feel like it matters just a touch less. And especially, if Carlos Felipe was a power punching young heavyweight, I'm all in. But he's just not, and he's not really touching people hard on the chin, and he's not hurting and staggering people much either. A lot of his shots kind of like glance, and he does a lot of like arm punching, in my opinion, where he'll like hit the two like slapping shots, but there's not a ton of like weight and force and heft behind it. So I think that could be a real problem here. I think Arlovsky is going to have more varied tools. I think Carlos Felipe's ground game is no good. And Arlovsky kind of got bum rushed and surprised against Aspinall. But outside of that, he's pretty reliable to not get subbed and stuff like that. Like he's always been pretty consistent in those positions. And I feel like I am on Arlovsky by decision, to be clear. That's my only bet on this fight so far. I got 0.53 units down at plus 195. I know that line is not around anymore. I think it's plus 175 now, best available. And, I don't love it as much at that price. I kind of wanted plus 200 and I was pissed I missed it. That's why I didn't go for the full unit. But I will say I do think Arlovsky is probably going to win this fight. My only concern with the Arlovsky decision bet, I know Arlovsky hasn't finished in a long time, but if he gets on top of Felipe, whether it's ground and pound or a submission, I don't think it's like outside the realm of possibility. I don't think it's likely, but that would be my only concern with laying it. You do get the plus money number. So, but I think Arlovsky is probably going to be my eventual pick here. He's probably the side, and, I just don't see enough from Felipe to bet on him. But if you get Felipe by decision at that plus 240, I don't blame you, if that's what you're on. Or if you're on Felipe by split decision, I know DraftKings is offering some of that stuff. I haven't taken any of it myself, but those split decision lines, I actually don't think that's crazy. I think that this is probably going to be a fight that plays out relatively close with Arlovsky winning pivotal moments like he normally does. But that could be misinterpreted easily. And I thought that it was clear that Tanner Boser beat Andre Arlovsky. I was wrong. So it's a subjective game that we're playing at the end of the day. And oftentimes these judges are disagreeing on fights that are clear as day. A heavyweight slop fest between two guys that could be low volume and limit exchanges here, or that could just go out there and have a slobber knocker. Split decisions at like plus 650, plus 850, plus, I wouldn't hate a poke on those either.
All right, I have so much to just process in this fight. Okay, first of all, I'm looking at this fight and I'm saying I bet Jake Collier by decision against Felipe. How can I not bet Andre Arlovsky? Number two is Andre Arlovsky burned me when I had like 3.5 units on Tanner Boser. So both sides.
I had 7. Between parlays and straight bets, I had 7 units on Tanner Boser that night, and I wanted to puke everywhere, dude. I really did.
Awful.
We'll never make that mistake again. Fading Arlovsky with somebody that doesn't punch. That's the problem, though. Like, I do think Felipe has a better chance to win the decision based on his throwing of punches. And this is something I came to a realization after the fact. I was like, how did they screw my boy Tanner Boser? And I went back and looked, and he threw a million leg kicks and threw very few punches. And the only meaningful punches that landed in a round were for Arlovsky. That's not going to be the case this time. But Arlovsky has more tools in this fight. Tanner Boser had way more tools than Arlovsky, so Arlovsky was forced to play a limited game and limit the exchanges, which was wise, actually. But Tanner Boser was also playing it smart, playing it conservative like he normally does, and that cost him in the spot. I think that Carlos Felipe is going to throw more volume than that, but I think it's going to put him in range to be countered. I think it's going to be put him in range to be taken down, and I also think it's going to put him in range to get clinched. And Arlovsky in the clinch is probably a much better fighter than him. So I expect Andre to lean on him and get. I think Dan from Best Fight Pick says give him a tour of the octagon. That's what I'm expecting. A tour of the octagon. Andre Arlovsky is leading the tour, and Carlos Boy Felipe is going to see every room in the exhibit. And that's how I feel like the fight's going to go. But the longer the fight spends at range, I do think Carlos Felipe becomes, more live in that spot. I do see why this is a 50-50 type fight. But that being said, I think Andre Arlovsky is going to win it more often than not. And that's why I ended up on him here. I think he should be favored. And I do think that his most likely path is to win by decision. So if Andre touches that plus money number on the money line, I will consider getting involved. I untracked, full disclosure, I have about a half unit on him, plus 100, because I was like, I'll take evens, and that's gone, which is why I haven't tracked it. But I basically just have a unit of exposure on Arlovsky between the decision and the money line, and the money line just because, like I said, I feel like he actually could finish Philippe. This is a step down in competition, broadly speaking, for Arlovsky, and I think that this is a very winnable fight for him. So 42 years old. Andre Arlovsky's been defying age and everything else for a long time. That's the only concern here. But I think he's going to do it once again on Saturday night.
If he is 35, we betting Arlovsky more? What's the line if Arlovsky's 35?
If Arlovsky is 35, we're betting 10 units on Arlovsky.
That's the thing. And the thing is, he's still doing pretty good.
Betting 6 units on Arlovsky. I'm kidding. We got to walk that back.
Well, this is one of those spots where, okay, I bet Collier against him. Arlovsky's so much better. What does Felipe have? Okay. Well, I got to agree with Gramps. Felipe pisses me off because he acts like he's winning the entire time, which, fair play. I mean, maybe that won you a couple decisions, but I don't think he's going to be winning everything. I think you got to look at wrestling, Arlovsky, clinch work, Arlovsky, counters, Arlovsky, fight IQ, Arlovsky. Like, I don't know. Am I crazy? Like, it's just
wrestling, grappling, as Khabib would say.
Yeah, man, and acting ability, Arlovsky. Like, just all this stuff.
Fouls, veteran savvy, power.
Like, why am I overthinking this? I think this is a spot where you play him on DraftKings. You okay there? You play him on DraftKings. You play his money line. I got him at plus 100. Okay, perfect. I got him at plus 100, and as long as there is no Adelaide Burger Christie special, I think he should win a decision or even finish the spot.
Don't wish that foulness on us now, Gramps. All love and respect. Don't you bring that foul energy in here. We ain't having no specials. Let's get it right this time, guys. Let's get it right. Let's get some good officials on this one. Where's my man Sal D'Amato?
And then you got to look at it from this side too. And whereas I do think it goes to decision most of the time, Arlovsky's been finished. Even though Felipe isn't a power puncher, Arlovsky has been finished. And Felipe has no ground game. He could be finished on the ground. So if it was a bigger number.
Recently speaking, Arlovsky has only gotten finished by like the hardest hitters. Excuse me, in all of heavyweight MMA. Thank you. Like Stipe, Jairzinho. It's
Aspinall.
It's just like he's not getting finished by bums ever in this like last 7-year run or whatever it is of his career. It's kind of remarkable.
Well, it feels like 2010 because I'm picking both Arlovsky and Jim Miller to win a fight. But let's move on to the main event of the evening. We have late notice replacement Aspen Ladd, who just collapsed on a scale, 2 weeks ago, versus my public enemy number 1, Norma Dumont. And now, if anybody's been watching this show for a while, you know I was head over heels for Norma Dumont. Sorry, for Felicia Spencer against Norma Dumont. One of the biggest losses I've had. Canadian bias, maybe. I thought there was a huge experience gap. I don't know if it was poor fight IQ by Felicia Spencer, but Dumont looked like she did okay. And now you have someone coming in, Aspen Ladd, who typically a weight bully, typically a strong fighter who's going up a weight division after collapsing on the scale 2 weeks ago. I don't know what to think, and I just put it very, very simple. Was I looked at best fight odds, and I saw that my book had the best possible line at plus 140, and I took it. Plus 140 is way gone. The problem I have now is I'm sitting at a ticket on Norma Dumont at plus 140 when, am I sure she's going to win the fight that much? I don't know. The way I see it is, if I was going to line this line myself, I'd probably have it around plus 130 for Dumont on a normal night. The problem is, cutting weight sucks. Going up a weight division sucks. You have no idea what you're going to expect from Aspen Ladd. This is 2 things. She's been off for a while as well. She hasn't fought in, 2 years? Her last win's over Kutsinyaka, who's been finished recently as well. Kutsinskaya, sorry. I don't know where to stand. I think people are giving too much credit to Ladd in terms of not level of competition, but she's fighting lower divisions and like using her weight to do that. But at the same time, you have someone in Norma Dumont who hasn't really fought anyone that well, hasn't been tested in many areas, and it's just a complete toss up for me. But plus CLV, I had to do it. It's not what I really like. I always tell you this all the time. I love to be confident on my bets, and I'm not confident on my ticket on Norma Dumont, but I do have one unit on her at plus 140 or plus 138 or whatever it was on DraftKings at the time. I'm just going to round it up to plus 140. But I have no idea how it's going to go. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, man, I also have Norma Dumont as a dog here, and I don't feel great about it. But, what I will say is this. I do agree with your point. Aspen Ladd tends to be a bit of a weight bully in her fights, a size bully. She likes to be bigger. She likes to be stronger. Does she have impressive, tape? Yes. In the Sijara Eubanks fight, very impressive. There's been other instances as well. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I could even refer back to the Tapology. And Aspen Ladd, not a ton of career experience, but been fighting vets, King wins, Tanya Evinger, not a fair physical fight. This is kind of like way different. Yana Kunitskaya, if she could match her physically, I don't think she can match her in terms of confidence and composure. But Yana was kind of very competitive throughout that fight, and it made me think that Yana was better than she was, right? And I went and, wanted to back her monetarily, and then I saw, wait, no, she can quit. She can give up. That's something that happens in her fights if she gets hit hard, by somebody who's committed to striking with her. It seems like it's happened a few times now. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'm overrating that power and that ability from Aspen Ladd. She struggled to take Yana down, and she struggled to control her against the fence. So I think that this is definitely going to be a competitive fight, especially early. My real concern for Norma here, I like the ABCs, to always bet on cardio. And I don't know that Norma has the best cardio. I will say she's been preparing for a 5-round fight. She's been aware that this is going to be a 5-round fight. And she's been preparing for somebody who can grapple and can strike, in Holly Holm. So I feel like she's been, trying to round out her game for this opportunity. I think she's going to come in well-schooled and well-prepared, well-trained for this fight. And I think Aspen Ladd, a lot of the same can be said, but there's a lot of unknowns. She's had a lot of time out of the cage, a little over 2 years, I believe, coming back from major knee surgeries, ACL, MCL repairs, pretty big surgeries. Granted, she's young. She can come back, obviously, but just a lot of unknowns coming into the spot. And we're relying on somebody with a surgically repaired knee who hasn't fought in 2 years to come out as the favorite in a fight in a weight class she hasn't really competed in, when she's shown a little bit of durability issues, when she just had a really horrific weight cut 2 weeks ago. I don't know. I can't get there. I think that this should be an even fight on paper. If not a slight edge to Norma, who was preparing for this opportunity and who is the natural, featherweight in the fight. I could be wrong about that. I did think that they looked relatively even in size at the face-off today. But, that's also right after the weigh-in. Aspen Ladd is probably close enough to the weight for 145. She probably have to cut a little bit to make it back down. But, you would assume that there was more weight cut on the other side, and so she could rehydrate potentially a little bit better. So I think Norma's going to be big, tough, and hard to take down for those early rounds. But I also think as the fight goes on, I heard somebody describe it as Aspen Ladd working her way into fights. I think that that's true. The Yana fight, that was definitely true. She looked good by the end of it. She just looked terrible for large portions of it. And I think that, if she makes those kind of mistakes here, if she has her hands low, if she comes in waiting in with her chin up, Norma's the kind of girl that might be able to make her pay. Doesn't have a lot of finishes inside the UFC, doesn't have them in MMA, but looks like she hurts and hits women hard and creates damage when she lands. And, I think maybe she's able to create some damage on Aspen Ladd here, who has had a little bit of suspect, chin, and obviously it was against GDR, but it was like a one-punch KO, rare to see in the women's divisions, and at least for me, just something I circled there. And, I kind of thought Yana was touching her up a little bit for various portions of that fight as well. So for me, this was a dog or pass situation, based on all that we don't know about Aspen Ladd at this division after 2 years layoff, after an ACL reconstruction. I want to see it. And, if she looks to form, if she can physically dominate somebody like Norma Dumont, well, maybe I adjust my betting strategy moving forward. But right now, plus 125 is what I ended up taking. It's what I was able to end up tipping as well for scores and odds. That line was the best available. It's gone. Plus 120 I'm seeing now is best available. So, I think Norma is probably going to close at plus 115. If I had to take a guess in this spot, I think plus 110 is also reasonable. I do think that the public likes Aspen Ladd a lot here. And I think the public's big on Aspen Ladd. And, for better or worse, Aspen Ladd is probably the name in the spot. And I think she's probably going to command more betting volume. But I think that the house might be on Norma Dumont when all said and done. And maybe I'm wrong about that. But, I think at least that's where the money's going to shake out. We've seen the betting line closing too. I think the book is starting to show Norma some respect. So let's see what's up.
I just think that all the underlying factors of this fight are in Dumont's favor, and that she shouldn't be, at that time was plus 140. I don't think she should be the underdog at all. And when you give me a 5-round fight, especially on something like DraftKings, where I'm able to capitalize off that extra rounds and getting more points, she's a great underdog spot. She's one of my favorite underdogs on the entire card, just because she has 5 rounds. She has shown to have decent ability to do well, and she's facing someone who struggled to cut weight, is typically smaller. I know they look a similar size, and it's one of those spots where DraftKings, sure, moneyline plus 140, sure, and that's what all it's going to be for exposure. I'm not going to want to go out there and lay 3 units. I do think that Aspen Ladd is a very solid competitor with a lot of credentials if she's able to execute her game plan, but at the spots I have, I'm liking Dumont here.
What's the price on Aspen Ladd on DraftKings by chance?
I think it's Dumont 7,800. Let me check. I have it open right here. So that would make 8,400 for Ladd. I'm pretty sure. Let me look.
If I think that either one of these ladies is pretty live to finish, honestly, in this fight, because of the chin issues, in my opinion, on the Aspen Ladd side, and then because of the cardio concerns on the Dumont side. Man, that for me spells the potential for finish. But I think it's burnt me a couple times now on these main events. So approach with caution. But I feel like this fight also is pretty likely to end inside the distance. My only concern is, man, people seem to fight different in 5-round fights. Like, they just don't engage as much. They pace themselves, and that's why I kind of like the 3-round format. Let's get in, let's get out, let's get to work. But we can all say that how many fights have we watched where we went, I wish we could get 2 more rounds. So it's a give and a take. But man, I think that 5 rounds, actually behooves Aspen Ladd in terms of her ability to work her way back into this fight. But I think that Dumont early is going to be really dangerous.
There you go. Yeah, $8,400 for Ladd. Did get that right. So you're sitting here, and at that mid-range price tags, you have Arlovsky at 8,200. You have Bruno Silva at 8,300. Ladd at 8,400. Candelosi at 8,500. Batgirl at 8,600. Then Jim Miller 8,700. So lots of options at that mid-range price tag. I do think you should target this main event because of output and opportunities for finishes. There you go. That's going to do it for us. That's the entire card done. 10 fight slate. Honestly, I'm actually really looking forward to it. I do have a lot of exposure on DraftKings and a bit more exposure than I want on the betting market itself. I think a good way to target this is there's a few decent parlay pieces, but be careful, please. Furiot, big price tag, dangerous. Klein, durability issues, even though he is one of my favorite spots this week. There's just a lot of spots where it's just really, really risky. Godinez going up a weight division, risky. Me facing someone in Roberts who is killer to be killed, risky there as well. There's just so many different ways to look at it, and I think we just end it right there. I'm going to let you have the mic, tell everyone where to find you, and let us know about your plays.
Absolutely, boss. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to first run through where I have action. Then I'm going to run you guys really quick through the long shot parlays that I threw together for this event. I got a couple fun ones here, a couple thematic ones, but this is what I currently have locked in on my tracked betting portal. I've got Norma Dumont 2 units at plus 125, Bruno Silva 1.3 units at minus 130, Danny Roberts 1.1 units at plus 280, Brandon Davis 0.6 units at plus 160, Estella Nunes plus 145, 1 unit. I have Ludovic Klein inside the distance 1.1 units at minus 111. I've got Jim Miller to win by sub in round 1.48 units at plus 700. I have added to that. I will have to update my track betting record at plus 750. I have Miller to win in round 1 at plus 550 for 0.22 units. I have 0.3 units on Miller round 1 or 2 at plus 280. I have 0.53 units Arlovsky decision at plus 195. I have 0.25 units Davis decision at plus 333. And I have 1.4 units on Davis and Bakary to go to decision at minus 138. Now, in terms of my long shot parlays, I am so pissed and just finding out now that my plus 4,960 on Wright and Marquez to end in round 1, Miller to win by sub in round 1, and Arlovsky by points has now been voided one leg. But I still have $5 to win 253. Miller sub round 1, Arlovsky by points. And then I also have for you, I think this is $1 to win 100. So if you want to take a small bet and rock with me on a chance to get paid, we got Danny Roberts by KO sub at plus 600. We got Jim Miller sub round 1 at plus 750. And we've got Aspen Ladd and Norma Dumont will not go to decision at minus 120. That's $1 to win 109 on FanDuel.
Well, I only have the one Hail Mary so far, and I will be adding more as I always do. You can check that out at Gordo Gambles on Twitter. Only Hail Mary I have right now is Klein to win inside the distance, Arlovsky by decision, Amiv by decision, and Miller round 1, plus 5,600. So all things I think are very viable to happen. Anyways, for me in terms of plays, I have a Firio and Amiv parlay. I have Amiv to win by decision. And then I have my Ludovic Klein and the Rams. Actually, I have Ludovic Klein, the Rams, and the Bills because biased Bills fan. Where's my jersey? Oh, it's not even there. That is plus 115. Then I have Jim Miller inside the distance plus 200. Ariane Candelosi 0.6 units at plus 250. Norma Dumont at plus 137. So it's plus 137, not plus 140. And then Andrei Arlovsky at plus 100. More units may come, more bets may come. But for now, that's what I'm rocking with. I'm looking towards the Andrew Sanchez money line if the money keeps rolling in that way. Might want to parlay Godinez with the NFL team. Might want to bet the under in the Candelosi fight. So many options. But yeah, that'll do it. Let us know. Let them know where they can find you.
Absolutely, man. And I'll also give you the full card shot. Nunes, Marquez canceled, Dumont, Amiv, Ferro, Arlovsky, Klein, Godinez, Silva, Davis, Miller. That is plus 26,000. $3 returns 736. That is my full card parlay that I went with. I did pick Amiv there. A couple of the safer bets, in my opinion, for the long shot. So let's see how it goes. But I can be found at LiamPicksFights. I can also be found later tonight on Narco Cops channel. Part of the reason I got these long shots on my mind, we're doing plus 300 and above are the odds we have to find on every fight. Got to pick something, and we're going to look for those spots and opportunities for people to get, big plus money looks. And I'm excited to be going on with those guys. In the interim, going to go get my own skills up, going to go strangle some people, but appreciate everybody watching and tuning in today. You could always find my work at LiamPicksFights. You can find me writing for Roto Grinders. My premium picks always on scoresandodds.com. Not every pick that I play on my personal account is something that I would consider premium and something that I would consider worth taking advantage of. So just something to keep in mind. Go check out what scoresandodds.com has on offer. Appreciate you guys very much.
There you go. Always happy to be joined by Liam here. He's an absolute beauty, great mind of the sport. And I mean, he's got his own abilities as well. Wrestling, BJJ, absolute stud in every single regard. Make sure you guys are following him on Twitter and subscribing to his YouTube channel. As for me, I would ask one big favor, and that is you guys go check out my DFS video for both NFL and UFC. Lots of money to be made this weekend. I'll be posting final lineups on my Twitter this weekend. You can also DM me for early plays and my early lineups as well. I appreciate you all you guys for tuning in. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel and to Gordo Gambles and Plays and Fades on Twitter. Thank you everybody for hanging out with you. One last shout to Douglas. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much for hanging out with us this weekend. It's been a great episode of Plays and Fades. An hour, 40 minutes, great 10-fight card, and find us next week and every single week. We are also doing Dana White Contender Series on Tuesday, and we've been smashing that. Another reason why I have so many bets is we got bankroll for days because I've been fortunate enough to go on Liam's show, and we've had some great bets on the Dana White Contender Series. So that's to be all for us. Make sure you guys are following and subscribed, and yeah, let's make some money. Cheers, guys.